Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show that sometimes happens on Tuesdays at 9 p.m., but it's 8:35 or so. And I'm excited to be here. I know I haven't been making a lot of shows, but I'm really just excited to be able to hang out and talk to one of my favorite guests and favorite people. We're going to meet each other in real life. It will happen. We're probably going to have to. AI is going to get to the point where we're going to have to. But Andy Rouse, if you've been following the podcast at all, you are familiar. He's been on a couple of times. The Deep Share podcast. Andy is working on a new project that we're going to talk a little bit about. And he is just a curious person. So there's a lot that I kind of want to get into and share a little bit about UFO stuff. Why we're seeing all the UFO stuff. I spent a good portion of the day looking into the Apple goggles too. That's kind of creepy and wild.
That new one. Yeah. That's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild. And then, just human origins and stuff. We've talked a lot about, just different myths and, the Bach saga and a lot of really cool stuff. So we'll just kind of shoot from the hip tonight. This is in the spirit of what's going on and this disclosure. There was a huge conference today, if y'all aren't aware, where what's his name? Stephen
Greer.
Stephen Greer. Yep. He disclosed a bunch of stuff. They've been apparently covering up and hiding a lot of technology. And that's, I think, the juicy part is all the technology that has not, has been swept up and hidden away. But I want to talk about that. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm happy to share mine. I want to hear anybody in the chat what you think about all this. We've talked about as conspiracy theorists. I'm just going to wear the label because I don't care. I'll call myself a conspiracy theorist and you can call me crazy. It's fine. We're all a little crazy anyway. And
we're a little past that point now anyway.
It's, whatever it is. But yeah, I think, Project Bluebeam is one of the classic conspiracy theories, that people have been talking about for a very long time. So it'll be fun to unpack it, and I'll share my angle on it. I don't really know.
Well, I was going to say, man, I invited you originally onto the Deep Share because it's been way too long since that happened. And this is the second time that we ended up doing like a show like this instead, and so I definitely want to hear your angle, and I want to hear what the hell you've been up to, man, because I know you've been doing more real world shit off screen, at least off podcasting a little bit, and you've been doing some really great stuff in the comedy scene, which is absolutely essential in the the better world we're trying to build with each other, to lighten up and have a good time together is the core of it, right?
It is.
So,
it is.
And survival and taking out the fucking demons and all that. But that's good. But yeah, totally. Man, what have you been up to anyway?
Dude, thank you for asking. Yeah, and I'm glad that you were down to do the swap thing because I already paid my StreamYard bill for the year. So, it's just cool. It's easy storage. I can shoot it right over to you. But I've been up to a lot. I started a new business this year. It's just a real simple cleaning business here in the community. It's going pretty well. I'm happy with that. I was already doing like Airbnb arbitrage was kind of one of my entrepreneurial endeavors. So there was already I was already kind of in that market, so to speak.
Mhm.
So it just made a lot of sense to just build some infrastructure. I've got software and text messages that get sent automatically that I put together this kind of machine, so to speak. And it took me weeks to be able to put it kind of all together, but it gives us an edge. And still, I'm on the phone doing all that kind of stuff as well. So front facing, but also having that infrastructure. Most people, especially in that line of work, are still writing things down. They're not quite as organized. They don't have those systems in place. So I spent a good bit of time putting that together, and that's my new business that I've been working on. I'm doing some rafting in the summer. On the weekends, I'll go up there and do some whitewater, and then
Nice.
I've been hitting the
Saw some
comedy.
pictures, man. You were getting in
Dude,
there, man. Those are some intense rapids.
that's a fun river. It's one of the oldest rivers in the world,
Which one
and
is it?
it's the Chattooga. It's where Deliverance was filmed.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And Section 4 is there's definitely some pretty gnarly spots, but it's a beautiful place up there. I love being up in the woods and being in nature, being away from everything. It's quiet, it's calm. It's really good for me. I love the adrenaline too of being on the river and getting cold water and hot sun and good exercise, and a team sport. Dude,
Oh yeah.
anybody who wants to come, I will take you rafting. Let's go.
If
do it.
I was ever gonna do it, I would go with you. I will tell you that. So I'm a badass. I'll say that confidently. I'm a badass on the land, and I love mountains, and I climb all year long, and I love winter because no one's around. So it's what it's meant to be, this nice like break from everything. But yeah, when it comes to water, man, I mean, as a kid, I loved doing like kneeboarding and water skiing and things like that, tubing. But man, getting into like a kayak, I would just flip over all the time.
Oh,
I was terrible in it. And I went down some rapids for my bachelor party, and oh man, yeah, it wasn't, not good.
I
would have to go with you.
Yeah, I also tried kayaking and had a terrible go at it. I don't like my head being under the water. I'm not a big fan of that. I like to be on top of it and in a boat with other people,
But that's really cool, man, about your cleaning company too, because like I feel like that's another aspect. Like I told you that comedy, of course, your stand-up is like a core aspect, but also the fact of like serving others. Even if you're getting paid for it, it's still a service. You're in the service industry. So I think that's really cool. And even the Airbnb is still, renting places. It's just all in the spirit of serving others. I think that's really great. And that's awesome, man. That's really cool that you've been spending a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
And now you get to come back to this,
Yeah. And I'll be back more, especially just as much as I possibly can. I'm trying to juggle for sure a few frying pans or what, but that's all right. I have to kind of like test the limits too and just see, and I'll just do what I can. I don't know. Sometimes I've had a lot of different types of guests on the show. It's a very open-minded show. And I've been doing this for a while, and it's cool. I enjoy it, but at the same time, I think having things that you're not necessarily beholden to, or less of those things, and just like the cleaning business can be something. I'm not a bajillionaire from it, but it's doing pretty good. I can make some money off of that. The Airbnb, make a little money off of that. We have a new little thing that we're going to try and start, make a little bit of money off of that. It's like, I don't want to be beholden to comedy. I don't want to be beholden to coaching, right? Like that makes me feel less free, less limber, like I have less choices. At the same time, you don't want to have 80,000 things going on and that you can't manage. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but I'm excited to hear about you and your new project and what you've been working on as well. And what you've been up to too with the podcast. I don't know. Maybe you're not ready to share some of that.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Maybe I'm a little just, a little stoned, but what project are you talking about? Like in the audio drama realm?
Yeah. I think that's
I'm not quite ready to say any details about it, but yeah, I'm working with some good people and hopefully even more to kind of combine efforts on this style and image and vision that we've been talking about. Very dark comedy, but involving the world that we swim in,
Right, right.
but a very tongue in cheek at times. So, I mean, that's kind of just my style, and the people I'm working with have that same humor. So, yeah, I can't say anything about it yet because Lord
Okay.
knows me. I've opened my mouth about a lot of ideas in the past that have fizzled or things have gotten in the way, so I don't want
Heard.
to lead anyone on. But in terms of the podcast, I'm kind of just, I'm trudging along. Like you said, not really beholden to it because I have my family life, which is absolutely primary. And then we have a lot of stuff going on at the house. We're planting a million things and taking care of those millions of things that we've planted all the time. And yeah, we're making our own kombuchas and tapaches and all these different things. And, these are all lessons that we've gained from this community. And so, the podcast on my end has just been going full fledged, but just kind of at my own pace as best I can. It's like Patreon. I put out this fun, entertaining show with Shane Newsom, where we just kind of watch crazy clips from our community and just kind of talk about those clips afterwards, whatever we think of them. And it's just entertainment. And I said I was going to do it once a week, and I'm still not even doing it because it just, I get distracted easily.
I mean,
I get overwhelmed easily and shut things off and walk away.
You don't realize it until you start creating content, which I hate. I kind of hate that whole as a term.
It feels like you're just distributing out bullshit.
Right.
It's creating content. Yeah, more.
Hurry up. It's like,
whoa,
God, it just sounds like you're filling up a diaper, just what can we put out? We got to put something out. It's got to be something. It's like, no, but that's how these algorithms are built, and it's like, it's really easy to burn out if you're not careful. I'd say, it's better to just, take it.
And I do. And I do that to a fault with a lot of things. I get hyper into something and I feel that momentum and I run with it. And that's when I'm putting out way more episodes and I'm really active in the podcast. And then, I just get burnt out. And I'm just like, whoa. All right. So maybe I won't put out an episode for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I'll just do other things, literally anything. I'll sit around at night and just do nothing, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world. I think John Mulaney had that joke a while back. When you ask an adult who did nothing over the weekend, it's the greatest thing they've ever said. It's like, oh yeah, I did nothing. It was wonderful. Because it's so rare.
It is. It's very rare, and it's really even hard to do. There's all these, I don't know. I feel like I have all these different impulses and internal voices that are trying to get me to do more. And you got to remember you've got to balance things out. It's like I've come to the point a couple of times already this year where I've just had to just be like, okay, I can't do that thing that I was trying to do this time. I got to call out. I didn't balance it right. It's not that I can't do all of those things, but if I'm not really conscious and intentional about it and thinking ahead enough, then I get to a certain point and I'm like, well, I just got nothing left in the tank. It is what it is. I think it's been 3 weeks since I had Matt Landman on the show, which epic. It was so funny.
That sounds epic already.
Yeah, dude, he freaked me out so good at the beginning, and I won't ever forget that.
That's awesome.
I'll never forget it. But
well, I don't think I'll freak you out, but let's start talking about UFO disclosure.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Definitely.
It's been an interesting week or two in that world. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, there's just so many layers. I mean, I would say that Shakespeare said all the world is a stage. He didn't say some of the world is a stage or most of it or everything but aliens is a stage. He said all the world is a stage. So that's basically, I guess, my beginning take. Anytime the government says anything, I don't believe it. That's my position is default. I just don't believe you.
You'd think this was the core of common sense that would have returned once you quote unquote wake up or come to or make these revelations about things around you. But no, No, people still go out and fucking. Anyway,
I mean, I don't
I
want to be so.
digress.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to be so binary either, right? So it's like a lot to unpack to where it's like, well, definitely
Yeah.
it's the opposite of what they said. Well, that doesn't
No.
mean that's true either. So it's not like that. It's not like, well, they said this, so it must be the opposite thing. No, well, no, it's just so, like I said, it's just so many layers. But I find it funny. I've kind of questioned Stephen Greer's credibility for some time. He's very educated. He definitely knows what he's talking about with a lot of the stuff. But I'm sure that we have been re-engineering and we do have technology that we're not aware of, even though it's our fault for driving around in gas powered cars and all that stuff,
Right.
so that they could scapegoat us and just make money. So I don't know. I wonder, and I can kind of speculate, and maybe we'll get there to those speculations or some of those possible angles on this. Obviously you've got the like Independence Day, like we're going to war against the aliens, Project Bluebeam kind of thing, which is awesome, like intriguing. And
it is. I want to watch it.
Yeah, dude. Like even last year, I was like, "Where are the aliens?"
Come on,
waiting on
even
the
if
aliens.
it's the show, let's get on with the show.
Well, the way that technology has progressed so far, it's already to the point where telling what's real and what's fake is basically impossible. Just where we are now here in June, right? Like, I think one of those microchips is going to go in somebody. What is it called? Neuralink. So Elon Musk is putting in the Neuralink,
the free speech savior.
Yeah. And then I was watching some of the goggles, augmented reality, Apple goggles, and watching a couple of the different people's takes on that too. I mean, and to combine those two things, my God, dude, it's kind of game over.
Mix psychedelics into it.
Oh God, yeah, that's very Brave New World
with no old world guidance whatsoever.
No context.
That's kind of being overwritten and no, we got like the updated 2.0 version. Don't you worry about it. We understand all these things. It's very Luciferian the way it's all being like laid out, or at least I'm using that word as like egoic, self-centered, self-serving, which is, I mean, a very crucial aspect to the Luciferian belief system anyway. So
yeah, it's very self-involved and rationalistic and not worried about anybody else. Just
right.
Yeah. And I think that is basically the nature of humanity at this point. We've kind of gone to that way. And I think we've lost a lot of context, from history, and we're very disconnected from a lot of things that are behind us. And who knows? I mean, we could speculate about some of that too. And I know some other myths and
dude, I found something wild today.
Okay.
So I've been trying to link the Sumerian myths, specifically like that area of mythology, the Anunnaki gods and all that. I've been trying to link them to what I've been able to like link these mythical godlike creatures or people in Ireland and Scotland and England and all different parts of the old world and everything. But the damn Anunnaki, the prime ones that I do connect back through like Armenia and into Ireland eventually, they are these people, but I'm trying to like connect them back into like roots of archaeological finds and anthropology that could link them to humanity, because that's obviously my idea, my hypothesis about it. And I finally found something that connects them to like the Caucasus Mountains and the Kurgan steppe and the Indo-Europeans and stuff like that. I'll have to pull it up, but I have it on my Twitter, which thank God I'm still active in. My Instagram, I think, is completely nuked at this point.
Oh God.
You can still go to it and activate it and look at it. Maybe someone will archive it for me. But yeah, I've been completely locked out of my Instagram account. And yeah, it was interesting how it all happened. But
is it because you're sharing some of this stuff? Like it's I'm
sharing things that, dare I say, don't go along with the conspiracy narratives.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, how many of those are crafted if all the world's a stage, right? Like, I mean, I think
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I think we are in a place with what was it, H.G. Wells that talked about the open conspiracy? I think it was H.G. Wells. Maybe it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was. And H.G. Wells is a suspicious person
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
They look like warnings, like they look like people that are warning us. Yet when you look at the finer details and look at the people they're connected to, it's like, oh, wait a minute.
right.
They were dictating.
They were technocrats, and there's a lot of history in the 50s of technocratic ideology. I mean, that's what Brave New World's about, 1984. I mean, they were actively doing this stuff. You read those books, or for me, I would read those books and be like, how could they know? It's like,
Right.
well, if they're in any area of the, upper crust of society, then they have to know, because that's what it's all about. And so there's a ton of like technocratic type of influencers and thinkers from the 50s and the 60s who are very smart systems engineers. And yeah, it's getting wild. I'm so curious. I love that you're sharing this kind of stuff that's against the conspiracy.
Yeah, we're like already going in like many directions, and it does involve like Greer and this Grush guy, David Grush.
I don't know if I know him. I guess I don't know.
Gristle,
I'll look him up.
But yeah, he's the big whistleblower that is like, it's official. Like, we have entered disclosure, quote unquote. But it's not like coming anymore. It's here, and whether we like it or not, it's they're standing behind it to some degree, But yeah, real quick, is there a way for me to share screen on StreamYard? I don't even know what I'm doing.
There should be.
Present. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, present. That's correct. Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
Right,
if I have to give you permission or something, I'm happy to. Just let me know. Yeah.
Okay. Dear Lord. Okay, this one. Yeah, share that one.
I mean, dude, it's crazy. I'm hearing people who are like Matt Walsh the other day, like randomly clicked on his video, and he's like, "This is important. You need to care about this. You need to care. It's important."
Yeah, like, that's weird.
What?
That's weird to have this fucking far right lunatic, this fear porn psycho, like Sky Daddy fearmonger.
It's like, tell me you're a shill without telling me about aliens. It's like, yeah, why?
It's the same thing as the Pope doing it. So fuck all. Check this out. This is can you see this?
I can.
Okay, this is a depiction of the Samara Bowl from Mesopotamia during the Uruk period, which is Sumer. This is one of the first cities, dating to 4800 BC.
Wow.
Now, what we see here is, of course, a symbol that I won't even say because YouTube doesn't like it. But it's associated with bad people from the middle of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. But it's way fucking older than that. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, of course, we've all seen this symbol in a lot of different places and a lot of historic artifacts all over the place. In fact, the oldest swastika ever found, was buried in Finland on this little ornament, this tusk of a mammoth. And it was like 20,000 years old or something like that. And it's swastikas all over it. And it has nothing to do with, of course, what it was turned into in the friggin' 20th century. It's much, much older than that. Right. But the main point is that I haven't found it in Mesopotamia, specifically Sumer. And I've been looking for, not specifically that, but I've been looking for links to that time period, that old 4800 BC to 5500 BC, those old periods where I've been looking at the Indo-European migrations. And so it's hopefully a breakthrough, because I can link all these together from the myths, but I'm really trying to put them to links to our human past, to say once and for all whether or not, these were magical gods from another land, or aliens, or humans,
or giant demons from some other planet,
right?
The Beirut,
exactly,
or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable how many different interpretations we have. And the thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize, even if they're not really directly into ancient aliens and they're more focused on the current disclosure and it's more techie, it's cooler, it's more fun to look into all these talking heads with their interviews. But the ancient alien thing is going to be absolutely crucial here as this all unfolds however they want it to. The
Mhm.
ancient alien thing is going to be central because they're not just hijacking whatever the fuck is going on with quote unquote the phenomenon. We know that this is about kind of all the cards. Lou Elizondo, which is whether you don't have to believe him or trust him or whatever, but they don't lie. Everything is intentional. Every single thing is intentional with these people. So Lou Elizondo has gone on record so many times talking about how, this is going to be something we all got to think long and hard about, all our beliefs and things like, he's fucking Uncle America, as I call him. He's literally there to look like the guy flipping burgers at a family cookout that you can just trust and hang out with. And he talks like that and acts like that. And he delivers these kind of messages. It's gonna, we got to do this real careful. We're all in this together, guys, but we got to do it careful and slow. All right. And it's like, fuck you. This is not real disclosure. You're always going to be obfuscating what's going on. You're never ex-military. Stop. And unfortunately, that's too confident because most of the community is eating it up. Not our community specific, but UFO world itself. It's an uphill battle for sure to say anything skeptical. Unfortunately, I think that's because you have the uber skeptics, which are like the Michael Shermers and the Mick Wests, the people that absolutely don't believe in any hocus pocus going on in my mundane world. Every conspiracy we've talked about, no matter what it is,
Right.
they will debunk JFK. Right. So they're the uber skeptics, the old school skeptics, the straw men, in my opinion. So, and we don't get listened to.
Right. No, I mean, well, they'll just
until Greer. I'm sorry. Should I take that back? We have to throw in Greer as our ultimate spokesperson here because he's the only guy, whether you trust him or not, who's suggesting the military is still fucking lying about all of this. And it's been a lot of it's their tech. The thing is, I still find him to be a total limited hangout. And, I used to think of him as a grifter, but he does have a lot of powerful connections and he has addressed presidents and heads of CIA and things like that. But we don't trust any of them either. So it's like, that's not really credible credentials necessarily. Regardless, he's the one suggesting these things, but he's also saying, but we got it all from aliens. You have to keep that alive in here. You'll never hear someone like, obviously me, but someone even saying something like me with credentials or whatever, who throws it all under the bus and suggests even the old shit that maybe we rediscovered or whatever was human tech, possibly. And the question's not even there. The option is not even there. It's not on the table.
Right. Well, I mean, but we see what Tesla was capable of and who knows, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. The alien thing makes it so untouchable that it makes you feel like, well, I could never figure it out. I'm just a dumb human.
And it fucking makes all our dreams come true. Well, now, granted, all of our dreams, all the people paying attention in that probably age bracket, those demographics, the ones who grew up with sci-fi like this throughout the 20th century and are paying attention, it's all of our dreams are coming true. Our fucking sci-fi world is here. A lot of us anyway. I can't speak for everyone. Well, I felt that way for a long time.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, the cryptids and the, all this lore and all this myth, interdimensional. I mean, to me, I've always thought aliens, what do they need a ship for? They're alien. They're interdimensional. They can just,
I think you and I have said that before. You've mentioned that before. And I think that's a really good point.
That would be my take on that, and as crazy as this sounds, this is like a bit that I would do of just like, oh yeah, well, what all that the Epstein just dresses up, as a space creature, and just starts shipping people off to islands. You know what I mean? Like, remember when people were getting abducted by aliens? Oh, that happened, people would talk about it on Coast to Coast and all that stuff. I mean, it's like the idea of predictive programming. Oh, well, a decade before we'll start talking about this.
Yeah.
And then that way it'll be because of this and it'll be the aliens and we can scapegoat that maybe possibly.
I think there was a lot of military kidnapping. And I can only call it a rumor, but I would say it's like a nearly confirmed rumor, hopefully, but it's only spoken word. But my source was another podcaster who did an interview with someone who was in the military who suggested that the first record of Betty and Barney Hill, which is the first big American sensational UFO story, I believe, right? Is that before? That was before Roswell, I think. I could be wrong there. I could be messing
Even
up.
Still,
but
that's
anyway, it's still
like
a major story.
Yeah.
Supposedly their first account was suggesting that they were kidnapped by military personnel and that they were freaking out about it. And then they did all the regression and the military was there to help and all that. And suddenly they come out with these insane, horrifying alien stories. And Barney was all sorts of fucked up about this. So it's interesting. Just the fact that rumor's out there, but that's not even a blip on the conspiratorial map out there. Like not a lot of people for not a very long time, at least, have been thinking about the idea of all of this being a total psyop, the alien thing, until so it's like you look at that and it's like, well, that rumors would be, if that's just a rumor, that's been around for quite a while. And it's like, why would that even exist when the conspiracies were always going more towards aliens anyway, everywhere? Like, if that was the motive, why would that story be floating around at all? Right. To me, if that was happening in a real life situation, well, why did that get mentioned? You are stealing the car, aren't you? You know what I mean? Like, it's deduction. It's reasonable.
It's motivation. It's motive.
Yeah,
it's what detectives use to figure out solve a crime.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I picked up from that rumor or, story from a military guy, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just, that goes along with so many other weird angles, man. And it's like, you and I both have had our very interesting experiences in consciousness. And I think that's going to play a huge role in whatever is going on here too. I don't know. What do you think of that? Like this newfound, the psychedelic revolution is back, right? And there's a lot of people we don't like that are at the head of it, and probably more me.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some people who are doing great work on it, but it was an immediate flashback to me when all this became, in vogue again. Yeah. Where in Brave New World, they've got Soma. And they administer it in a group and they tell you what it is and they tell you what it means and they tell you what to think about it. It's like there's so many people who have gone down that road who just still don't see some of the things that I think are glaringly obvious that I would think you would take from an experience like that, or, in a deep search like that. Drugs off the table, if you literally did just look at all the things, like I would think that more people who have kind of gone down that road or, have those are more creative and open-minded, let's say, whatever, would consider more of the, I don't know, man. They don't seem very critical a lot of times. And I don't know. I think if you can tell somebody about it, and create that meaning for them, then they don't get the opportunity to create meaning. Like Robert, and I think, man, so many of my heroes are probably CIA, like even Robert Anton Wilson, he's like,
right. I totally agree. Yeah.
He is a toenail on the Illuminati, but he is just a toenail, but he is a toenail on the Illuminati. And it's like, or the CIA or whatever, group that actually winds up being. It's like, but I respect so much of his work, but there's some of it that I'm just like, no, the monkey thing, I'm not with it,
right.
Like, he's so like,
and his friends, it's like, and who you're hanging out with and who's paying you a lot. And it's like, what the hell's going on there? And I run into it all the time with my favorite people that I I read over and over
McKenna is a great
again.
example, and I
McKenna's a great example. I
love a lot of
think
his
I
work.
uncovered something recently on my Instagram about it's the video, you can watch it. It's a speech from him talking all about depopulation
Yep.
and it needing to happen and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
He was always into like the redistribution of wealth and all that. It was always there, but when I was into McKenna, that's not what I was paying attention to. I was paying attention to all the fancy, funny things he was saying before he got into anything serious, right? It's all I was trying to understand my own damn psychedelic experiences. So he gave me that. He gave me at least a helpful glance into my own mind while he was in there. He was just pounding other shit in there without me even thinking about it.
Yeah, ain't nobody living rent free. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, man. Tim Leary, all of them
for sure.
And yeah, the crossover into the UFO alien thing. I think just in broadly speaking, it's all connected. That's why we as conspiracy theorists have been, I hate to say it, we've been all put together.
Yep.
Really, I've come to the conclusion that everything that was not censored for the past whatever years have this operation been going on. Everything that was not censored was for the public at large, and everything that was censored was not meant to not be seen or heard. It was meant for us. It was literally meant for a small portion of society that only wanted to find out what's under the covers, because that's inevitably part of humanity. So, I mean, this is easy to see now. I didn't see it a couple of years ago, but that's kind of what I'm looking at now. It feels like I'm looking right down the barrel of it. It's pretty wild.
I think that's really good. I heard somebody do an analogy of this where they were just showing like a video of like a water fountain, and then there's the water at the top, and then it drips down to the next bowl, and then down to the next bowl, and then down to the next bowl. And so like everybody's kind of in their little bowl, some people are here, some people are in this bowl is like QAnon or something, and then the next one's like this other little trap that gets you, and then there's another bowl beneath that, and then like the biggest one's the one where the most status quo, most mainstream ideas and thoughts are, and they get kind of carried into that, and it's like we're in our own little feeder areas where we're consuming this type of content. I mean, I went down the flat earth thing and the hollow earth because it is curious. I'm fascinated by it. Of course I want to look into it. And then what was the next thing was like Tartaria and the mud flood, and then all these things. And it's like, man, it's so easy to just get sucked into a rabbit hole. And then, I mean, that's just where you're at that point. I don't know. I don't know if there is an end to the maze or
I don't know. I think the end to the maze is like fucking 2 to the back of the head or something.
It's just like,
or shock under the chest and like a noose around the neck on your own property, or with no suicide note.
right. And how do you skip that whole reincarnation bit? How do you do?
Right.
But oh shit. Maybe the only thing is like some Ramana Maharshi shit. We click into something within us. I mean, to answer the original question that we kind of went down, like how our consciousness and how our worldview and the work that we've done will affect us. A good friend of mine, and I say this all the time because it hit me like a ton of bricks when he said it, was that he said that if unconditional love is real, it would have to be tested. Right. So I think that's kind of our challenge as far as like what enlightenment is like truly accepting unconditional love versus having the opportunity to run from it. That's maybe going to be the dividing line there. That's
beautiful,
pretty powerful. And I think there's at least it makes a lot of sense to me. I think there's truth to it. Yeah. And it's so interesting to think about what you're saying, where it's like all the things that were censored or put over here, it was just set over here for everybody who was more curious, wanted to know, wanted to dive down and experience that stuff. And there's just so many deep rabbit holes. And and the truth of it is like, just like Robert Anton Wilson said, who is the master who makes the grass green? It's we make our meaning of the world. So but the majority of people, that's created for them. They just take the status quo. They're in that feeder or that like little bowl of water or whatever. And then other people climb up and are in different paradigms and mentalities. But I think ultimately it's really about self-acceptance, accepting God or creation or the universe as that totality, and being willing to double down on that and lean into unconditional love, even when it seems like maybe this, it's a challenge. Maybe this is, I'm scared. Maybe, you have the ability to back down.
Yeah, I feel like it is. It's like that. Everybody says higher self, higher dimension, God, whatever. But when you get a chance to like feel that state, that gnosis is, as people can call it sometimes, that gnosis really does have to do with that unconditional love, because it suddenly becomes none of it was like a human issue at all, and human was one part of it, and it was all this big beautiful dance of energy or something. Of course we don't know what it is, but it's, yeah, everything seems to work out and everything is balanced. And you try to express that on a human level, and you immediately get, well, people are dying in India, or, that's the old way to say it, right? Like,
Right.
children are starving and halfway around the world. It's because it's perfect, not on a human level. And I think that's the weird part. And that, of course, I think there's a way to tear off there and get really inhuman and think about it like from a very callous point of view. But of course, there's this other way to just kind of, it's kind of not able to be put into words really, but it's just, I guess, unconditional love, like this surrendering to the situation, because in that state, you kind of realize there's nothing you can do about it anyway.
Yeah. The madness is,
the madness.
It's like,
but
you can't figure it out anyway. So you just wind up going crazy, drive yourself nuts trying to get to the bottom or the end of it.
And that's, it's like, I think you and I have talked about like the law of one and things like that on our talks before. And the thing is, while we're talking about, counter intel in the alt media, or, big time controlled opposition, or these psyops, all these evildoers, within that law of one, you have to take a very unbiased approach at looking at these situations and who these people maybe represent more than what they're doing. I don't know, man. But that's the problem. I don't have the answers on how to connect those two things. Like, overwhelming evidence of really terrifying shit that these people might be doing, and at the same time trying to accept we're all one.
Right.
And then, okay, throw in that maybe hyperhuman or inhuman or beyond human acceptance that everything is balanced and the way it's supposed to be on some sort of Zen level. It's a fucking conundrum.
It is. It's a paradox too. And like, which is one of the Hermetic laws, right? Like,
right.
Every
nothing
truth
makes
is
sense.
a half truth. It's all a half true. And so nobody can really explain. And I love this. I mean, I keep coming back to this because it's like, it puts us all on the same level. It's like, I don't care who you are, Neil deGrasse Tyson, some like real scientist, whoever you are, you can't explain what reality is. It's impossible. No one can.
And the ones that do are full of shit. Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, the ones that do are like, you're gonna be drinking Kool-Aid on a beach with them. They're gonna be, yeah.
I've seen massive YouTube accounts that are followed and they're science-based and things like that. A lot of great content, I'm sure, a lot of actual data, but they throw in this. I was watching some video on the nervous system, and they threw in, now we've obviously figured out by now that consciousness happens because of blah, 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 like in the brain. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, wait, you figured out the hard problem of consciousness and nobody told anybody? What? And then, so I started looking into it, and yeah, there's just these people that think that that's figured out, and they're just satisfied with like the materialist reductionist answers. And saviors like Sam Harris and
Oh
things
my
like that,
God.
who
Yeah.
of course have their dick in this community too, with his fucking meditation app and his leniency towards that
He doesn't believe
that
in free
true part of
will.
things.
He doesn't
He's an
believe in
idiot.
free will. He is an idiot on that one. Like, I mean, I'm not
I don't know
fixing
if I
to.
do either, though, man.
Yeah,
I've definitely felt like I was part of a painting that was much bigger than me, that I had nothing to do. Like, I played a role in, but it was beyond my comprehension.
well, I think
Free
yeah, I
will
mean,
was
I
real
agree with that.
here, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're both kind of half true, but
right,
he's like so adamantly like, oh yeah, the Big Bang happened and then everything that was going to happen just happened like it well, if that's the case, then why do I need to worry about anything, right? Like, I mean, there's no need to worry about the environment or any of the other
absolutely.
things. It was
I
already
am
predetermined, so there's nothing we can do about it. So why are we going to make a conscious change and try to save the planet or any of those
true.
things? It just throws all the arguments off base at that point. I don't know. I mean,
No, it's true. And you're saying the
mess.
half truth thing. Sorry to cut you off,
No,
man.
you're good.
You're blasting me into outer space here. This half truth thing, man, it's so true, because Alan Watts basically gives this too. And to be honest, it was something that I very much identify with. A lot of my experience was like this: there is nothing to be gained, there's nothing to be lost. Everywhere you want to go, you're already there. That whole very psychedelic but also very ancient Eastern philosophy is very enticing. And I don't know how wrong it is. I think this is where we get into the weeds, because we're talking about philosophy that it's almost like to say philosophy of the gods versus being a human being, and being in the human drama of duality. And I think that's the incongruity of trying to be spiritual and trying to live that way, but also live your life, because it's an oxymoron. It's a paradox.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's very well said, man. I mean, I go back and forth all the time, and honestly, when I look out my window, like I live in like a bird preserve over here. I mean, like it's usually a beautiful day. I walk outside, there's birds all over the place. I don't know why there's so many birds that live in my neighborhood. I guess it's the old trees. There's a lot of old trees here. And I just walk around and this is beautiful, but then I go, to the other extreme as well. Like, it's a human thing. It's a fight, we gotta, I mean, procreate or leave a legacy of some kind. And there is that human dilemma as well. And so I think they're both valid. Once again, it's like the freaking half truths,
Right. It's the forever paradox.
It is. Yeah.
It's the one we can't solve, and it's the one we can't get ahead of, because it's literally us and what we're made out of, basically. Yeah. It always felt that way to me. And yeah.
Same. I mean, and I like it. I like being human. I enjoy, I've like literally even worked on enjoying this experience, like intentionally, and being more focused and being present in the time and understanding the value of that, right? Like all of those things. Yet at the same time, if someone's trying to hurt my family, fisticuffs, bro, like we're going to throw down. It won't be, yeah. I mean, I won't just meditate, while you come into my house. That's not going to happen either.
Right.
So
yeah.
It is a truly interesting predicament, man. And I think we are this interesting mix, like as we go back and like start to look at and maybe ask some questions about heritage and origins and that kind of thing. We definitely have these animalistic capacities, capabilities, and we also have some form of ability to become more aware, to learn, for our consciousness to expand, and for us to understand concepts like unity, even though we're different. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm interested to hear a little bit about that. Like, I'd love to hear kind of your theory, like on the archons and that type of thing, as well as rediscover technology, or even the plausibility of, I guess, alien or some sort of a space technology, as far as how we're created and how and all this disclosure stuff as well.
All right. Well, I will start on the side of aliens, pro alien little tidbit here.
I love it.
Because
The
you
true
never get
debater.
that from me, really.
That's great. That's perfect.
If anybody has like not heard of this man yet and loves this topic, they should definitely go read everything by Bruce. Oh my God, I'm an asshole. Now I can't even remember. I bet people already know who I'm talking about, but I'm just
Jenner. No,
my God. Oh my God.
Let's
No.
see. Disclosure.
I'm terrible. This is a total brain. This is me, classic brain fart. Bruce Fenton, man. That's who I'm thinking of. Bruce Fenton. Bruce Fenton is talking about like crazy geosignatures and anomalies like 788,000 years ago, like techno signatures and space glass and like explosions. And okay, yeah, I'm butchering that, but go find Bruce Fenton's work and follow him, read his get into his Substack and all that. That dude is awesome, and I think to me that's what we should be looking at in terms of like aliens and stuff like that. When we start talking about our written history, even our prehistory and what's been written about our prehistory, I tend to think that's all humans, and that's our origins they're talking about, and they, the big bad they, the supposed archons and all that. I think all of that is part of this human story that we're carrying out now. And of course, for years and years and years, the conspiracy world has been adamant, and they've easily connected the elites to these ancient stories, but with the added caveat of they're reptilian monsters or shapeshifters or aliens or the actual gods or demons. And fair enough, because as I've been saying a lot lately, when you grow up in a very mundane world and then someone or something shows you how amazing and not mundane this world really is, if you're like me, you have this extraordinary experience in your own consciousness, you are wide open to all of this now. And why would you ever go back? Why would you ever put it back in the box, right? Why would you ever go back to anything mundane? And you start planting flags really quickly in your mind, and you start building a worldview. You know, and those big conspiracies that everyone gets hit with when they first wake up, I would say look into where those come from for the most part, and you'll find suspect, you know, like, okay, JFK, that's the biggest one, right? And we're getting a little off track, but just as an example, okay, JFK, he got killed. And you have this whole contingency of people that are researching it for just general reasons, but a lot of them are like, Kennedy was killed because he was our hero. In a sense, on one level or not. Even I have quoted that many times, like things he said about the CIA and things like that. But at the same time, he's a fucking Kennedy.
Yeah.
And do 9 hours of research into that way before him and everything else. And it doesn't fucking matter. And it's like, okay, maybe he was going to squeal, or I don't know, whatever. But, you know, that's kind of my example of that. It's always kind of just set up for us in that way. Right. And it's, yeah. So our origins, I think, if a lot of us are always talking about how they're trying to hide our power and our personal, you know, reason to be, whatever, our purposes and all that, then yeah, why wouldn't it be that we did all this? And, you know, including them, quote unquote, them. They were us. They are us. We are them. As far as I'm concerned, this is a little weird, but I think we're all fucking Israelites, basically.
Just different tribes.
Basically, yeah. I mean, not to say that we're all Jewish or that the Kabbalah or any of that. No, just talking like blood, like family. We are all from the same families at one point, and yeah, there's no way around that.
We're all from Genghis Khan, you know. There's no.
Yeah, that's Genghis was great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everybody. Great.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, no, that's it's interesting. And the ancient aliens thing, it's been on Discovery for years and years and just been pounded into
History.
people's heads. Yeah, the History Channel, that's right.
But I
And
think they're both the same anyway. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's been, tons of different people talking about this and different, I don't know, just different ideas. And I don't know. The savior complex is always going to be an issue too. Like, I guess that's part of the angle, right? Like, do you make the aliens out to be the bad guys or the good guys?
Both.
I guess, yeah, you have the option, right? Like, it could be either and or both, where it's like, oh, who are my reptilians? Oh, Pleiadians, good folks.
Hey, we even have people, obviously, even in the conspiracy world, that are very Christian and
Sure.
think of Yahweh as the God. Meanwhile, he was like a Babylonian storm king, and it was there. When you look into it, there's a whole contingency of people that think he was the devil or he was the bad guy, And then there's people that think, oh, all the Gnostic texts say that they're the evil ones. And it always comes down to what you believe. And what I find is that there's like this fine line between, as we've been saying, that balancing point between what is thought of as atheism and between between that and our takes on spirituality and post-mortem experiences and stuff like that. I really do think there's somewhere like a balancing point in there that kind of has some kind of secret magic to it that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I think that's where like most of it comes from in terms of like where we're led.
Right.
And what we hold on to against our logical brains, I really, even the most logical among us, like they say, there's no atheist in a foxhole kind of thing.
Right.
We desperately want to hold on to this version of reality. And that, I think that includes this idea of multiplicity and billions of people. And that sounds really weird, but we're talking law of one a lot. So yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, it all has to resolve, I think, I don't know, in my brain somehow, right? Like,
right.
I don't know how it can't all come back to one. It just like, you got to start somewhere, and everybody's going to have different takes on all this. I'd be interested. I've been looking into like more of the Greek philosophy and stuff like that. They had their own gods, these gods as well.
Oh yeah.
That'd be archonic potentially. I've thought about just different angles and possibilities of that, like where that all comes from and stems from. But I know you did a lot of work on the Bach saga and learning about that and those origins.
Still doing it.
Yeah.
Still learning more,
which is awesome. Yeah. I mean, can you share a little bit about that just for anybody who doesn't know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been learning so much more. There's always like different angles to look at it from, but recently I think it's my most recent episode out on the feed is Eric Edney, who was the producer behind all of the Bach saga documentaries that you find on YouTube that I've shared a billion times everywhere. Welcome to Hell, Welcome to Atlantis, Welcome to Rajasthan, Who the Hell is Eeyore Bach, Back to Lemminkainen, which is a 13-part video series, all behind the scenes with the diggers at the temple and all that. So this guy knows everybody. He's been intimately close with these people for a long time. He was at the dig site. He was in the temple, or at least what they've opened up so far, So it was great to talk to him and hear all kinds of stories and perspectives on, getting a little bit more realism to it too. Because when you start hearing stories about how Eeyore Bach first turned to his friend and said, hey, so my mother just died and I have to tell you something that I've been learning for the past 25 years,
wow.
And it's so cool to get that up close and personal take from the real people involved. Because then, if you're at a half-ass decent like judge of character at all, you can see that this was all a very real situation going on. This wasn't some charlatan just making it up to create a cult, as it's been said in some cases. But man, I had my mind blown after the podcast because I forgot to ask him a question I really wanted to ask him. And it was regarding this rumor that had been around. I can't even remember where I first heard it, but it might have been originally from the dig site, of course, but there was a rumor that there was a human carving inside when they blew it all open and blasted out the boulders and all the rocks that even the slabs of granite that Eeyore said would be there, blasted all that out. Inside the chamber on the bedrock wall, there was supposedly some drawing, some carving into the bedrock. And I asked him if that was true, and he said, yes, it's absolutely true. And I'm like, and was it a checkerboard? And he was like, yes.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh shit.
We'll talk a little bit
They
about...
weren't playing fucking checkers.
Yeah, right.
I mean, maybe they were. They probably were.
Could have been. Yeah. Well, I mean, the implications, it's so interesting. I forget the exact quote, but they have a saying, you know, with the Box Saga that, you know, evil proliferated when ink hit paper or something like that. I know I'm butchering it a little bit.
The black ink hit the white paper.
Yeah. And like that makes a lot of sense to me. Cause I mean, you know, look at what can be fabricated through that, right? Like at this point now, you know, a generation, look what's happened just in my lifetime. You know, I'm 40. So I look at someone who's, you know, 20 years old, and, you know, the way that they carry themselves, their style, their sense of individuality, all of it is so much different, and they relate to the world so much differently than I do. And that's just our generation. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even that far removed. So imagine, you know, you get to 4 to 5, 10 generations, and all of a sudden you could literally fabricate an entire unreality, or a different reality, or a different perception or ideology of reality that people would just swallow and hook, line, and sinker. So
hey, just kill enough people and scare the shit out of the ones that you let live enough. They're not going to say anything. They're just going to let you rule the fucking world.
Yep. They don't, and especially if you make it where they don't have time to do anything else except for rush out and try to feed their families. You know what I'm saying?
So here's another really juicy thing that I learned from the interview, and this is in the interview, and you can hear it there. Probably better told by Eric, obviously, but we were talking about this sect of people in southern Finland, and I've mentioned these people many times in other podcasts that still speak the root language claimed by the Box Saga, that is the root of all human language, supposedly. And when I was hearing that all this time, I just perceived on my own, without any, like, you know, actual empirical clarification, I just assumed that we were talking about people that were unknowingly speaking root still in present day. And I found that to be amazing. It was great. What I'm finding to be even more incredible is what's been told to me by Eric was that, no, this is the remainder of the people that still remember.
Wow.
And there's like, I think he said hundreds and hundreds of them still in southern Finland, in Helsinki, that still speak this root language. And it's basically, he suggested that while Eeyore presented the Box Saga to the public, a lot of these people were allowed to coexist out in public for the most part, you know, because at the end of this last disaster or cataclysm, quote unquote, Ragnarok, did I talk to you about it before, when the Catholics came in and destroyed Helsinki and ended it all?
Yeah, you did. We talked about that on the last podcast.
Cool. So at that point, there was 2 families left. So because the 2 families were left, obviously they continued to have children and throughout time, and they were just meant to keep the story in the family.
Wow.
But I think inevitably it was out in certain areas and stuff like that as they proliferated throughout generations. And what Eric said, that they were like innkeepers. They were the Germanic and the Scandinavian innkeepers. They were the people that owned inns and stuff like that. And you look at all of our horror movies about hostels, and you're like, why is this telling me not to go to any hostels?
Wow. No hostels in Europe. Yeah. Don't go over there. They're evil. It's like, yeah.
But yeah, so like they've existed this whole time, and these are the people in southern Finland that supposedly still speak root language and remember the old ways and all that. And it was interesting. After I learned this, I started looking into Eeyore Bach's father's lineage, and his family background, and it's all there. I can send you links if you're interested.
That's fascinating.
But I hope this doesn't offend anyone, because I'm sure there's like at least a mainstream version of why this is, and I'm probably stepping all over it. But you know how a lot of Scandinavian last names are like Jorgen's son, with like that son at the end. Well, there's also daughter, Dotter. And those first parts of the last name are their parents' names, usually their father's name. And it would be like Jorgen would be the father, and Jorgen's son would be the last name of his son. So it would be like Eric, Jorgen's son. You see what I mean? It's like Eric, comma, Jorgen's son.
Yeah.
Now, when I was looking into Eeyore Bach's father's lineage, what I was starting to see was that everyone was marrying their siblings. Because so it was Jorgen's son, but he was married to Jorgen's daughter. And I kept seeing this everywhere. And I know that there's a lot of common names, but I was doing my due diligence. And plus, with the history that is already there in the Bach saga of them trying to keep the ancient family line very pure. And of course, we know that theme has been in the conspiracy world forever, and it's proliferated in these elite bloodlines, supposedly. So I don't know if that's directly connected. One's a psyop for the other or what, but I am finding that, and it's really interesting to think, is that where those kinds of names, or were they just using that to their advantage to hide in plain sight, or was it out in the open? Was that how that kind of surname came about, from them hiding in play? I don't know. I'm trying not to be offensive, but I'm just making speculations.
No, it's interesting. No, it is. Well, we see this a lot. That's not the only place, you see something like that. And I think it might be even that, like you're saying, like we're all sort of descendants of sort of a tribe, whatever. That's just one of the ones. And I mean, you hear a lot of that kind of speculation within that whole, like, reptilian bloodline or whatever it winds up being.
The Dragon Lords, right?
It's just like, I think it's just like that's that group, that crew trying to keep themselves, I don't want to say pure, because
well, they think they consider it pure.
To them.
But the thing is, what always confounds us is that, like, we know that incest does not produce purity, and it degenerates. And that's not what the Bach saga talks about, was like the structure of society, but like not like nobody was like, it wasn't incestual directly, it was like throughout, like everybody was related throughout like 3 caste systems accordingly and stuff like that. It was like incest adjacent kind of.
Right.
But it was very interesting. They had to obviously change their ways in more recent times, though. It was interesting because Eeyore Bach's mother, or his father, was also his grandfather.
Okay. I'm not sure how that works. And I'm from the South, like I should know how this works, but grandfather was also his father. Okay.
Eeyore's mother.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yikes. Okay. Interesting.
And so this is interesting too, because it's like not how the Paradise time was structured. This is a degeneration, and it was, in their story, it's like a desperation.
That makes sense. Okay. So they were kind of, their hand was forced, right? There was just not enough to keep
in a way,
going. Maybe they
couldn't. Yeah,
they couldn't continue to proliferate without
the way. Yeah, because they don't own society anymore. They're not. According to the saga, they don't have their original system anymore. So yeah, they have to they want to keep it alive. So that's what they've been doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But now it's over. It's gone. It's done, because Eeyore's gone, and he was the last one anyway, and he was murdered. And we got into that on my talk with Eric Edney as well. So it's very interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of taboo stuff, of course, about this. And it also does echo a lot of things we hear in the conspiracy world. Atlantis being the big one, of course. And you were just mentioning Greek mythology. Well,
yeah.
The Atlanteans and all that. That's the tail end but we're describing the same groups of invading seafaring people.
Yep.
Because I mean, when we look into that Atlantean history, even from the Plato narrative, if you start tracing lines of migrations of humans, that leads all the way back to the East and India and Scythia, and where the Phoenicians were. And this is where Khazaria is. It's the Anunnaki. Like it's all of them. It's all here. It's just so confounding. And there's so many little pieces and nuances that, man, I've been thinking about a documentary for years, but oh, my head explodes when I try to like, all right, where do I start? All right, we are all one. That'll
Right.
be the first sentence. we'll end with there's no alien. I don't know. It would be one of those 8-hour ones.
Well, I've been going through like the Greek stuff and the Will Durant's stuff, who, I mean, he put a lot of stuff like a modern history. And it's funny when you say that, where you're like, I don't know where I would begin. Like in the beginning of his, when you read our Oriental heritage, like the first thing he's talking about is how he was just going to write a history book for the last century, but he just kept having to go back and go back and go back and go back until it's like, dude, it's volumes and volumes of information. It's just it's overwhelming, just that what, he had done. And I think he did a great job of highlighting and showcasing many different cultures and how they start to influence one another too. And like, I think what you have gotten into is maybe there was some competition between some of these tribes, and certain ones wanted certain powers and all kinds of.
My core belief is that one was okay and satisfied with what nature provided through and through. Like literally stone buildings, they were never going past that. And there was this other line of thinking that was, no, we can continue. We can get better and better and better. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either way. I think there is something to be said, though, unfortunately, about that constant progress. Because even if we trace the word progress back to how it's been used since the turn of the 20th century, we get into some real shady territory.
Mm-hmm.
And the progressive movement and where that starts and all that, like that's what that leads into. But where I bring it is all the way back to human behavior. And this is a conscious decision in your head. Like, do I take the shortcut or do I do the real work? And that's one example of it, but it really is this one way or the other. And it's the old versus the new. That's like a easy title to put on it, kind of, in my way of thinking about it. Old versus new. That's how I'm looking at it. And that's our feud. I think that's our biggest feud, not just between each other in factions, maybe white hats, black hats, whatever you want to call it, but also within ourselves and our conundrum in this paradox. Because both options are correct and wrong, or, the natural way, like this archaic revival that's clearly back and coming back. That doesn't feel techie at all. So it's weird that those two things are happening at the same time. But it's like both these forces working together, We desperately want this more natural world. We want this more natural way. We want to go back. I mean, shit, even many philosophers have suggested that the story of Atlantis itself and everything connected to it is just a deep-rooted desire to go back for this deep regret in humanity or something. Yeah, I don't know. I trailed off there.
It's fascinating. I mean, it really is. And I mean, I've stumbled upon so much great wisdom and virtuous ideas in the past. The Oralinda book is a great example.
Oh my God. Yeah. I want to talk to that guy.
Oh, so beautiful, and those ideas. And those are the ideas that, I mean, to me, that represents one of the ways, right? Like, I mean, where we're headed now, like I was saying earlier, I was looking at videos about the Apple goggles and what all that. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, everybody's going to be walking around in a scuba mask.
$34.99.
That's the first version, though. Remember when the Razor?
3 comma.
Yeah. Remember when the first Razor came out? The first Razor cell phone was like $800 or something back in 1996 or something. So like it's $34.99 now, but give it like it's the very first iteration, and give it like the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. They'll do like a air goggle or something, and so everyone will be able to afford it. It'll be like $600 or $700, you know, like it's going to be like the new cell phone or whatever. People are just going to be walking around in this augmented reality with these goggles on that just tracks your eye movement. It's just, it
convenience everywhere, right?
My mind. Yeah, you can have whatever you want right now, whatever that
you won't even have to type in "I'm looking for food" or you won't even have to say "I'm looking for food." This Neuralink shit's gonna, like, you're hungry, here's all these restaurants, you can go this way, or here's your fridge, everything in your fridge is cataloged. And it's that new way, that convenience. We can do better. For what purpose? To lay down and do nothing. We want to do nothing. And I'm not saying that as necessarily like some people just want to be lazy. I think there's something existential about it too. I think it's that, you know, when you clear trauma, you need to rest, you know, when you like really reveal something to yourself and you find out about something in your past, or you finally face something, whatever it may be, you release trauma, even somatic healing, right? Physically releasing trauma from the body.
Yeah.
You have this rest period that needs to happen afterwards. And we are in a civilization of like neurotic psychosis and depression from our anxiety for everything we've been through as a human species. And if fucking ancestral trauma has anything to say about it, if that's real at all, my God, what we carry with us, we don't want to do anything. We want to lay the fuck down for a minute, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think part of that is the exhaustion that, you know, that this world that has been created through this new way, you know, and all this convenience and availability and status and, you know, social stuff and social media and all this other, you know, where it's just constantly, you're just getting, it's a barrage. And so there's an exhaustion, I think, that we just kind of naturally have. It's like our brains process information, and I don't think we've ever, or I don't think humans generally have had access to this much information at once. You got to process this stuff. It's like, you know, like we're looking around and I'm looking for a snake, you know, so that I don't step on it. And so I'm looking for information that's going to keep me safe and keep me from getting hurt or whatever. And I don't know which information of that is the one that I'm useful. If I see a snake, I'm like, oh, that's red and it has yellow and black. That's a coral snake. I need to get away from that. As a snake, I run. But I don't know what information I need. What's important to me? I've got 18 emails. Which one do I need to read? And I think we just part of that, you know. And I think, yeah, I think we do want to rest. I think we want to like resolve. We want to resolve back into that one, right? Like we have this need, I believe, and I think that's where a lot of addiction comes from. Just because you're like, I just want to rest. I just want to be back in, you know, in that space where everything is okay. Right. And a lot of that, I think a lot of that is very pure and innocent, but I think it just gets exploited. And especially in our modern society, like it just makes us chase all these different ideas. And oh man, yeah, it's just exhausting, overwhelming. Somebody says, oh, so sleepy.
It's a different kind of exhaustion than the exoteric ancient world. You know, the esoteric world that we live in, you know, we're ruled over by pen and tongue, I like to say, whereas before we were ruled over by sword and shield. And back then the truth was like evident. People knew about these secret societies, knowing more than them and all that. Like that was the kingship kind of. And now it's this hidden clandestine kind of version of it. You know, it's weird. And if we have this archaic revival coming back and we have all these pagan desires, these old ways, this more natural, inevitably we're all going to collectively seek out the most extreme version of that on a massive scale. And it does feel like the archaic revival that was, of course, prophesized by Mr. Terrence McKenna. And, that's what's weird about this tech takeover to me. And maybe I'm going to sound really paranoid, but to me, like Klaus Schwab, Dr. Evil incarnate, right? Like it is like we've been saying it's too obvious, and it is too obvious. And it's an interesting situation we have where we do have this dramatic push towards that world, which includes him and every bit of takeover that's happening. But we do have this archaic revival and these very subtle underlying things going on with other characters and people all of these people report to, and these secret societies and these old ancient rites that really are at the core of everything, even our politics and religions that we know. So we know something more than this is happening. So what if we are going back to an exoteric rule? Because think about it. As I was saying before, this whole conspiracy world has kind of been manufactured and given to us, a small portion of us to run with. And if our job is to collapse the house of cards, we're the ones that are collapsing the world. And if the bad guys that we're after are all of the tech genius, all that world, then that's going to be what collapses. And what comes after that?
Yeah, it's going to be eating dandelions and growing stuff. And I guess
I don't know.
If it's an archaic,
I'm just
it collapses. Yeah.
Because if the old world was like just fucking Wild West, but even more so, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what they're hoping for. Like, this society will totally collapse. Yes, we do have all this tech, but we're the ones who own it all. And now, yeah, we can rule over you with sword and shield. They're just digital.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see that as kind of like a panopticon, right?
I might be just paranoid. There's probably more pieces I'm not putting together.
Well,
like there's AI
right
ain't in anybody's control, I don't think.
Right. That's a good point.
What do we do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's Terminator. I don't think even they, quote unquote, they want Terminator to happen. Or do they? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Throw it in your court, man.
No, that's cool. I think these are good ideas, and it's interesting. I mean, ultimately, I think the truth of it is like, it's like I was watching a video today, or my mom was in the other room, and like this guy sitting there like, well, when we wake up, and it's like, when we wake up and do what, motherfucker? Like, what are we supposed to do? Put a bull hat on or like a shaman and paint ourselves and run into the freaking White House? Yeah, we can do that, but you know how that ends. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's not wise. There's nothing wise about that. At the same time, I know there are people who have their own interests, and there always have been, and there always will be, who are warring factions of different, and they're probably all gangs, mobs of, psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists and that kind of stuff. So I think it is about power and domination. I don't think I would be surprised if the system collapses, because I feel like that it really is. That is that sword and shield. It has become that, shit, man. It has only been 10 years since I've had one of these. And I think about that all the time. Right. Now the fucking goggle and if they put Neuralink in there with that, like, oh man. I mean, the amount of people who are just going to be, it'll be like Ready Player One, and like, what everybody was scared of with the metaverse, I guess.
I think they got their cyborgs, right? Because Neuralink,
that is
plus AI, which is inevitable. It's already there. There's no way in hell those weren't built and are running on programs with AI involved. I don't know the details because I don't read papers I don't understand. But I would say that's terrifying, because then you have whatever you want. You have a slave or you have a soldier. Who knows? Oh my God. God. But that's why we're talking about all this shit. You know?
Yeah, it is.
And
It
how does
is.
the alien thing fit into this stuff that we're talking about? My God, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I
fuck,
mean, you've
it's
got
been such a distraction for so
huge.
long, and now it's like main course. So it's like,
You've
fuck, I
got,
don't know.
yeah,
What do
dude.
you
It
do with
blew
it?
my mind. It blew my mind when, like, yeah, I'm not. I click around on YouTube just to because I'm
Hell yeah.
curious, and I want to see what people are saying. And when I saw, like, I don't really particularly like Matt Walsh. I thought "What Is a Woman" was okay. There was some
Good points here and
good
there, right?
points for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And but like I feel like that guy, he's just stirring shit up. Like that's his job. It's his job to stir shit up. And when you've got someone overtly saying, this is important and you need to care about this, it's like, shut the fuck. Like there's nothing that is redeemable about you if you're shoving
No.
anything down someone's throat like that. Like a fascist, like truly, you know what I mean? Like a right-wing fucking angry, it's like, but dude, you can't force those people to care about this. They've never cared about it. They don't care about it, and they're not going to care about it. Like it's
And
weird.
he's divisive.
Why
He's
would you?
divisive
He
as a
is.
right-wing
Yeah,
Christian or
he is.
Catholic, whatever he is. And no offense to people that side right-wing or are Christians or
Sure.
Catholics, whatever.
Sure.
But I will say that there's been not millions, lots of videos over the years that I have seen that like just someone telling the bare bones truth and it's killing it. And it's like every minute goes by of the video, I'm like, yes, oh, I'm totally sending this to my dad and he's gonna get it finally and he's gonna wake up. And then they, maybe not even my dad, maybe my friends or whoever. Sure. And they end with, because I know that Jesus Christ in my heart, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you just lost so many fucking people. And no offense to you. Good for you that you have that belief, and that's totally fine. Sure. I'm not offended by it all, but God damn it. We're trying to like wake everybody up. You're not going to get there in that way.
Right.
You're not going to do it through your religion. That's going to hurt, unfortunately, a lot of the people you're trying to wake up who are all sciencey and way away from anything mystical. They are mundane unless it's spooky science. It's interesting quantum physics.
Or like
can't get them that way.
Yeah, you can't. Like they'll
You're gonna
bite
turn them
on.
off. You're gonna turn them off and make us all look like what you all do.
Right.
Fuck, man.
Exactly. Just completely discredited. And it's so sad. Like we were talking a little bit before the show about, people in our community who legitimately have interest in talking to people who have done certain things, and they're just written off immediately just because of the stigma of asking questions and being, a part of that community. Like as a comedian, obviously I want to get booked, so I can't just go in there and start saying crazy shit. And, even if the audience is into it, the comedians are going to be like, nah, he's done. You're blackballed, pal. Right. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and that's fine. I'm not crying about that because I've come along enough to understand comedy is always changing anyway, right? Like what was funny 10 years ago is no longer funny. It just, you feel how hacky
it's
shit
hard
is.
to watch some old stand-up bits.
Go watch like some old Jim Norton being on Opie and Anthony or something, and you'll just be like, this is just
and
bad.
Yet some of it's timeless. Do you think that's just subjective? Do you think in 15 years, Jim Norton or Doug Stanhope will be more iconic than they would be just looking up close? Or do you think it really is just certain people?
I think it's more certain people, and I think it's more certain bits too. It's like there are certain things, because you'll see people on the left and people on the right sharing George Carlin stuff, right? Like,
because or Richard Pryor,
100%.
Not Sam Kinison.
No, you won't.
Not Sam.
No, not Sam. But but it just changes. It's always going to evolve. It's always going to develop and be different. So not even saying anything about that. Like I want to use comedy as a medium to talk about some of this stuff. That's a lot easier said than done. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially when I am doing comedy to normies on a consistent nightly basis. I don't have an alt media following in front of me.
I think that's better, dude. I think that's such a beautiful opportunity, and not to bombard them, not to freak them out, not to alienate, but to just tease.
Yeah, just have some fun.
It doesn't even have to be the primary part of the joke, right?
Sure.
It's just throw it in. Yeah, all those masks we've been wearing, right?
Well, what's funny
What's
about
that
it?
about? But anyway, that's a
Yeah,
different
what's
story.
the deal with
I'm not a comedian, as you can tell.
Well, what I've found is that it's those trigger words. It's whenever you take a position on something, you're going to alienate somebody who disagrees with you. Period. And everyone can be offended. Like that includes me and any comedian and anyone. Like people are all like, I'm a free speech, purist, and I'm as close to that as you can be, right? But like, still, you can still offend me. You can still, like there's a lot to unpack with that. And the point is it's like I've got a Biden bit that I think is super funny. In any room, like in any room, I will talk about Joe Biden and how he's redefining comedy, right? Like he's a slapstick genius. Did you see him fall the other week? It was incredible.
Yeah.
So, like I start talking about that, and the more passionate it is, like it doesn't matter. It could be any room. They'll see the humor in that because I'm not like defaming his character or making fun of anybody for their beliefs or who they voted for or shaming them or virtue signaling or talking, I think the audiences are as a whole really getting tired of being pandered to politically. And that's, again, comedy is changing. It's been that way for a couple of years, ever since especially the pandemic, where a lot of comedians, that's all they've got is making fun of people who have different opinions. And this might sound ridiculous coming from a comedian, but when all you do is you just nitpick and humiliate people, or just make fun of them and just ridicule them, like that's not a fucking argument. Ridiculing someone is not a better argument. It's just
ad hominem.
It's just an ad hominem attack. Exactly.
Bullshit.
It's just the lamest thing you can do. So, I think people are just as a whole getting tired of that. So that's a positive thing. And I think, where my head is and where the world, can kind of catch up to, I think those two worlds start to come together more and more. I think the pendulum will swing back where people are like, yeah, we have been lied to our entire lives. We were lied to about this. We were lied to about that. Why would it change all of a sudden? Yeah. Now they're telling the truth. It doesn't make any sense. I just sent one of Ron Funches's clips. He's a very funny comedian, and he's talking about, man, y'all don't believe in conspiracy theories? Not any of them? He's like, that's a strong position to take. He's like, you think the government's just batting 1,000 at telling us the truth?
I've seen that. Yeah. That was great.
It's perfect.
So good.
It's perfect.
Because it's kind of looking at it. It's like, you're not ridiculing anybody, but you're going, hey man, we're friends. Absurdity. Yeah. You all right?
Yeah, come on. Look how absurd that is. That is a very strong position. And so I think making those insights, and comedy is really about relief for the audience. They want you to say something that they want to say, but they can't say it, right? Like, and then when you do that, it's like, there's an exhale, there's like a release there, like a bit of a relief. And so I don't know, I've been learning more about it. I've got still tons to learn. I've been having a lot of fun. Starting to really have fun, actually.
That's great, man. You hosted a big show.
Yeah, I did. Cool. I did. It was amazing. I hosted Joe Pettis's special taping at the 40 Watt, and I'm getting booked, and so that is really fun. And I've made friends with comedians, and it's interesting too, because like every comedian is different. There's not a generalization really of comedian. You find introverts, extroverts, rednecks, liberals. I mean, you name it. I mean, there's every type. There is a sort of pervasive, I would say, pressure. And I think Patrice talks a lot about that, and talk about someone who I think will age well. Is Patrice O'Neill.
Oh yeah, I think he's one of those guys. I think that, remember, I feel like roasts. Well, they were probably all bullshit, but like pieces of shit. But the roasts were, at first it felt like specific people, and now it's just turned into anybody gets roasted. But it's like some of these comics, like you said, it is specific people when you think about it. Like, just the bits themselves will live on kind of forever almost. They're the timeless ones until we drastically change, I guess. Until we grow out of sarcasm. I don't know.
Well, I still don't think comedy, and I know I'm not the only one who will have this position, but I don't think comedy has even come close to catching up to Bill Hicks, so
Interesting.
we'll eventually get
I mean,
there.
Dennis Leary copied him for a whole show to like do a tribute to him. That was funny. For years, I thought he literally ripped him off.
He did.
But then I found out. Wait, am I thinking about this the right way? I thought it was a benefit for Bill because the fucking tour was called "No Cure for Cancer." I thought it was a whole thing, and I was like giving too much judgment to Leary, and maybe they were all buddy. I don't know. Maybe.
I'm pretty sure they were not, and this speaks to the testament of like how much of a genius Bill Hicks was, because there's a story where he's going down the road and he puts a tape in and it's Dennis Leary's special and he plays it for his brother and his brother goes, "Those are your jokes." It's the one where he's talking about like, I go through X amount of packs of cigarettes. It's how many lighters it is,
Yeah.
and all those
the
jokes.
Jim Fix bit.
Yeah, all that stuff. And so what Bill did was eject the tape out of the player and just throw it out the window and then write new material.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, I was way off. I was just trying to give credit to Dennis Leary, I guess.
I'm not trying to say anything.
Hometown guy.
Sorry,
dude. I don't give a shit. But he's literally from, like the town over from where I grew up.
Wow.
And he like hung out with people's dads that I was friends with, who were like buddies with like Bruins players that, it was crazy. Small area in the Worcester, Boston area up here. But
that's cool, though.
That's crazy to hook that around. Yeah, because my God, Bill Hicks, really then pioneered so much of comedy. And man, he pushed a lot of limits. And I hate to say it, but I wonder sometimes about him too in some ways. Not the Alex Jones thing. I'm not. I mean, that would be really crazy. I'm not like, it's kind of like flat earth for me. I'm like, hey, if that were to be the case, then that's wild. But like, to me, what irked me, and if I can find it, I'll send it to you. A lot of us have seen like a 5 to 8 minute bit. It wasn't even a bit. It was between bits where he's dealing with a heckler, and it's kind of shitty footage. If you haven't seen it, it's wild to begin with anyway, because he is just calling this woman out and being crazy, kicking her out, and she gets kicked out, but there's one video I've seen and it's an extended version of that, and he was having some kind of night, because I don't even know if it was directly after that, but at one point he starts going off and not even telling jokes all of a sudden.
He did that a lot, apparently.
But in this clip he starts talking about, he either brings up the heckler again, or it was right after the heckler, but he starts talking about us, like all the public, the swine. I'm the like, you're here to see me, like crazy, self-righteous, crazy shit. And it was just, I'm not trying to put a damper on it, but it was like, whoa, haven't seen this extended clip before. And then I really haven't seen it since. I think I have looked for it and haven't been able to find it, but I'm sure it's out there to be found.
I'm sure it is too. And he probably did have that kind of attitude. You know how he was politically, and like, God, would he be insufferable now? Maybe. I mean,
that's the problem, right? Even Carlin, I think about a lot, right?
Maybe.
A lot of them. If Rage Against the Machine had died 5 years ago in a plane crash, my view of them would be much different. I would have felt a different way about them. I never really looked into it, maybe. I
still respect Chris Cornell,
Yeah, see, there you go. You got I mean, you got people that like literally died trying to be good within that industry. Him and Chester, a band that I disavowed after I was like 17, I was like, these guys, fucking pop, fake metal. And then come to find out, man, this guy was really trying to do good.
He really was the voice of God. Hey.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh man, I'm starting to like all these bands I didn't like because of their character.
That's great. What a good excuse, Like, I used to feel that way about the Flaming Lips years and years ago. Did you ever see that documentary they did, like the Fearless Freaks?
Absolutely.
So
a good friend of mine, his older brother was absolutely obsessed with them, went to see them a million times. And I was indoctrinated. Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. They were one of my favorites. I've probably seen them and Radiohead the most. Probably seen Radiohead more, but
So jealous.
yeah, but again, it's like I lost respect for both of those, within the past
Yeah.
couple of years, and even Tool, and it's like, oh man, that
Yeah.
hurts.
It's weird when you start hearing conspiracies about Tool and you try to write it off as like, well, you can't just jump to Freemasonry automatically and say all of them are evil, because I know Freemasons that are just normal people. That's obviously cover for a deeper society. I get that, but like so yeah, I was trying to dismiss it. And of course you deal with like the far reaching like Christian side of it, where it's like, they're all just satanic. It's all evil,
Right.
devil worship.
Right.
Can throw all that out, but then you start really looking, it's like, well, oh man, Fear Inoculum came out right before the pandemic, basically. Not right before, but far enough ahead.
Pretty,
Right
come on.
there, man.
Yeah.
And the lyrics, man, I mean, not to say there's a lot of truth, a lot of spiritual truth given out, but at the same time that spiritual truth is given out to us in many forms, we're also bombarded with many ways to perceive and go back to that spiritual truth that's being given to us and perceive it in all these different ways, which is just colors it in all these illusions, So Tool may be, I think, releasing a lot of very deep consciousness stuff and like interesting information. They always have.
Yeah.
But then who's reading it? All of us, who are very subjective and very vulnerable, especially once we find out the world ain't mundane. If we have some experience that inspires us to look between the cracks and everything, then we are led into all sorts of insanity.
Yeah.
So we can attribute any lyric, any truth, any deep old philosophy that's given to us now in a million different ways. And that's why I love studying language, because when you really go back, and that's why I love the Bach saga, there's something about Occam's razor there that is so hair-raising and final, and you feel like you get hit in the face, especially when it's language too, It's
yeah. No, it's intense. And I think that's a really good point that you make, where there are these myriad ways to interpret the world, right? Like, and so I think that's where we're headed, especially with the VR and the AR and all that. It's going to be, you literally are living in your own reality tunnel, and there'll be small groups of factions here, there, that think this and think that. I mean, at this point, right? Like, you don't need ABC News to tell the entire public one status quo truth and everyone follows that narrative. At this point,
Right.
You've got the internet, where, like you were saying earlier, it's like the stuff that was censored. Now, obviously it wasn't censored, because if it was censored, we wouldn't even know about it, right? But
exactly.
It was, yeah. But
Should we talk about FOIA?
Right.
And it's, I'll just say this, because my mind went to FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, not to all extents, because people use it in legal cases with like family, like all kinds of criminal cases and things like that. But when it comes to FOIA within like the UFO territory and declassified CIA information, again, some truth covered in bullshit, right? That's my opinion. And it's like, why does FOIA even have to exist? The fact of the very fact of its existence proves its uselessness.
It proves
And
hiding.
we have to request from the government that works for us shit that they're keeping from us because they don't think we can handle it. Well, that's the cover story or whatever
Right.
it is.
Because
National
public
security.
exactly, national security, right?
Fear your brothers and sisters. They could be agents. They could be agents from another country. So yeah, I don't trust FOIA whatsoever, really, in terms of like declassified this and declassified that. We have the gateway experience, but again, we have the gateway experience, and that's Robert Monroe and his work, and it's the government's take on it. And then we have a myriad of other bad actors and controlled opposition units that will give us many, many, many perceptions about how we should perceive these other realms, quote unquote, or other quote unquote intelligences and things like that. They have it in every which way you look. You know, it's fairies, it's aliens, it's gods, it's demons, it's whatever you want it to be. It's us from the future. If you want to get with Jack Sarfetti, I don't know.
That's
He contacted
crazy.
me a while ago. He's some scientist. He wanted to come on my show, and I thought he was just some crazy whack job because he was telling me that robots contacted him when he was a kid from the future, telling him he was going to work with amazing people and save the world. And now he's deep into the anti-gravitic world with all the tech people working on alien stuff and all that. So, and I didn't know that he was like an actual like professor of physics and things like that. I didn't know he was anybody. I was just like, fuck off, and just ignored him. And now I see his name everywhere. So that's like, if you want to know anything about me and you didn't know me before this, yeah, fuck that. I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't
That's
buy
so
it, and I'm
funny.
not going to advertise it on my show unless I'm
That's so
shitting on it
funny.
or debating you on it.
Right. I'm so much more George Nori or fucking whatever. Where
So what did you have for lunch when you were with the aliens?
Exactly. That is me.
What kind of spacesuits did you wear?
I'm not trying to pervade like a bunch of
That's
trash,
fair, man.
but at the same
I'm a
time,
provocateur sometimes on accident. I'm not
I can't check
trying
these
to be
people's.
that way.
I don't have
I'm just
time to
pissed.
check. I don't have time to check people's credentials. I like Occam's razor. I'd rather sit here and talk to you. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. I see your perspective, and if it makes sense to me, it resonates. Because I really do think no matter who it is, there's going to be a shard of truth in there, and then just a bunch of poop. You know that it's not even our fault, right? It's like
it's not their fault either.
It's not their fault. That's just mixed in with it.
And I like that you said, like, you know, you take what you get from me that you jive with and leave what you don't, right? And it's like, that's kind of the point of the game. We're all coming at it from perception. And you and I have also talked a lot about, like we said before, the law of one and where we're all possibly united and interconnected in some way, whatever that may be. There's many interpretations there too. Sure. But so to even walk in that territory and swim in those waters, you got to accept that even these people we're talking so negatively about, or I am at least.
Yeah.
And like coming at and trying to expose or this or that, it's not to call them the bad guy necessarily. It's really, in essence, to continue unfolding this story. If what we're after is more of a rooted truth, and I do think it's possible, I don't buy that, oh, we'll never know. I think, you know, when it comes to like our history and what's going on, that is all unfolding. That's the whole point. You know, it's the lotus flower. It's the philosophy in Buddhism that they talk about when it comes to the unfolding of the conscious experience. And it's unfolding for each of us, and it's unfolding on a collective level for the earth and humanity. If that might be a little woo-woo, but whatever.
I dig it. No, I'm into that. And then I've heard people talk about like the new earth,
5D,
you know, it's like,
it's
the new, and then everyone just hops into like Agenda 2030 communitarianism. Oh, it's the new earth or whatever. And it's like
Starship
makes
Troopers.
a lot of sense too.
Yeah, man, it does. Yeah,
it's so mixed because it's like, I want to connect with the earth, but I don't want to be part of your weird fucking flower cult or whatever, you know, like whatever that winds up being, where it's like, oh, well, you have to do that. You didn't do your share of the, I'm sorry, man, up against the wall, you know, who knows what happens at that point. It's
some point it was just some fucking asshole with a pamphlet like, hey, so what if we didn't build it ourselves?
Right.
Read this.
right.
God damn.
Well, and I mean, I guess we'll keep exploring. I'm with you. I'm optimistic. I mean, I am too. I don't think
my negative takes
yeah
on a lot of things,
I mean, there's going to be some weird shit but I think it comes back to that awareness. You know, that's why we do the work we do consciously and love, man. I mean, it's simple and silly and all that, and I know it probably gets lost in translation a lot, but that's what I think it's, you know, ultimately it comes down to. And it makes me happy to be able to have people to talk to about this who truly confide in it. Cause like I said, these are things I do want to talk about to just normal people whoever, but not in a way that is going to make them feel alienated or pissed off or any of that, like if possible, right? Like I want to, just talk about possibilities and options and what might be, since nobody can fucking prove shit, like, I mean,
right. Yeah.
here we
not
are.
Yet.
Yeah, nothing.
If it's possible, it hasn't been done yet in a way that's like spread out enough immediately to hit enough of us at once or something, but who knows, maybe that will happen. I am optimistic as well. And you always make me more optimistic when we talk. Like every time we talk, I think it kind of echoes out afterwards, man, because you just have such a positive energy, man. You really do. And I appreciate you a lot.
Well, I appreciate you too, and all the work you've done and all the digging and research. It's amazing. And I love hearing about it and how all these things connect. And the fact that you're like, you'll take a stand against the conspiracy people or whoever, just to say, hey,
they call it black pilled, right?
It's
the new conspiracy term, basically. Right. It's the new conspiracy theorist, but conspiracy theorists use it on each other.
Right. Is that like a negative thing? Like,
yeah, it's like black pill. You don't believe any, it's just a lot of it's to do with nihilism. But I've heard it often discussed when talking about, turning the spotlight back around and looking at what's going on in the community. If we can talk about controlled opposition at some high operating level, then it would be really dangerous of us to not consider it trickling down into every fractal of the community.
That's a good point. Yeah. Especially.
And I would like to turn all of your listeners, if you would let me, if you haven't listened to my friend Drew Missen's podcast, it's called Missing the Point, or You're Missing the Point, MISSEN. He's a good friend from Australia, and he's a brilliant podcaster. He does great interviews. He asks amazing questions, and he's smart as hell. He's a teacher, and he's stuck in what's going on in Australia. So he's a great dude, and he has a great show. And his most recent episode, he had our friend Brandy on, who I've had on my show a number of times, and she let loose on her very personal experiences with a very messed up situation that is happening in our community at a smaller level, ops going on at the micro level, as is written in documentation that we have been going over, her and I and a couple others. We've been seeing all this documentation about, of course, go after the ones that are, just starting out, trying to make something for themselves. It's not necessarily these situations where it's just Joe Rogan getting bought out for millions or his family being owned by the Illuminati, or hey, it goes up that chain. And absolutely, I look at him as a waving the flag saying, all right, everybody, you can start talking about this now.
Right.
Because ever since Jimmy Corsetti's been on his fucking show talking about the Adam and Eve story, now that's trickled out everywhere, and we got fear going on. And now it's not an asteroid or a comet. We got nothing. We can't even blast it out of the sky. It's our own planet.
Right.
It's going to destroy us, man. And I'm not saying there isn't some truth there. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, that's suspect. All of it's suspect. But I do see him shouting that out down the pipeline. But yeah, it's every level. And well, we've been talking about UFOs and aliens. Well, that episode on Missing the Point with Brandy and Drew is all about the UFO subject and the people involved, and a lot of really big names involved, and some smaller ones that you might be familiar with if you listen to the episode and you pick up on it.
Cool. Yeah, man. I'm definitely going to listen to this. That'd be episode 30 came out.
And the subject matter that's being discussed on this episode will be coming out on like a bigger discussion soon with more physical evidence and things like that. So that, yeah, stay tuned, because call me black-pilled, but something stinks big time. And it's the same kind of psyops that we've been talking about on a grander scale. Just these are shaping operations.
Yeah.
These are ways to influence even down on a micro level.
Sure.
And in retrospect, looking back now with what I know, I've absolutely I'm not tooting my own horn. I don't have many followers or not a lot of subscribers, but I absolutely was targeted. And they come as your best friend and they fucking love you, man. They give you your number. They want to hang out. They want to talk to you. They want to send you as many guests as they can. And have those names pop back up in my head as things have unraveled these days. So yeah, a lot is coming down the pipeline.
It's fascinating. Well, it's interesting in podcasting too, because it's changed so much. I've been doing this for a long time, and now people send you their one sheets with their suggested questions that you should ask for, and all the details to their coaching program or whatever. And it's gotten that. I've found people on Pod Booker and some other places like that where you can literally just kind of go and look at someone's podcast through there. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Like as far as booking stuff, sometimes people will reach out to me. Sometimes people's agents will reach out to me.
Likewise, absolutely. And I'm not saying that's all.
No, it's just interesting.
I'm not being paranoid here.
It's just changed a lot.
You are awesome, and people do love you, man. They want to talk to you for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. I love giving people a platform, even if it's something where I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'll still, for the most part, unless it's something that I think is harmful. But I mean, I just, yeah.
Well, I think you honor that. You honor people's perceptions, and I think you don't draw any hard lines, and you don't plant any flags. And I love that, because neither do I. I could say we're all one at the end of the day, and that kind of makes it better with what I've been saying, but I still don't know. I have no fucking clue, man. You know?
Well, there's also the paranoia aspect of it too, where it's like, this is another one of those Robert Anton Wilson things from like Illuminatus or something, where it's like, if you have one secret police, then you have to have another secret police to police that secret police. And then there needs to be a real secret police behind that secret police to make sure that the first, and it just becomes this shell game of, like a Russian doll where like eventually you just like spin out on the floor and you just can't take it anymore, and I think there's the propensity for people in this movement. We're already a little bit paranoid and thinking about, these things, and I'm not saying be negligent either, but I just mean like there's already sort of that propensity. So I think the momentum is kind of there. And then that's what, somebody is like, oh, well, you're a shill. It's like, well, wait a second. You know what I mean? Like I'm self-employed as a shill, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Absolutely. Yeah. I was called controlled op the other day because I don't like, I think it was Jordan Peterson. Or it might have been just Joe Rogan or something like that. Like he's exposed so much. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, Jordan Peterson, man, so clearly a hypocrite, but also a lot of great wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. See?
Again, 100%. He's got a lot of that guy will tell you to make your bed.
Damn right. Yeah, and I will agree with him to that extent. Absolutely. I agree with Joe Rogan on a number of things because that's what. They are, they're not put there to disagree with us, and as far as like, knowledgeable controlled op versus like unknowing puppet or what, that's there's a lot of, it's not all one answer,
right.
Because I know from firsthand the situation I'm dealing with, researching with Brandy and others, is that it may be more of a lot of people are convinced they're doing the right thing by people that aren't. And that goes, honestly, and it's a whole other topic and it's getting late. Obviously we can't dig into this, but it's MK Ultra as well. It's that idea of that darker side of MK Ultra that no one really talks about beyond the LSD and just giving it out to the public and stuff. They don't talk about the building people up and making them think they're saving the world and putting them in these situations and alien abductions and things like that, which is on paper. Like those are things that happen. Doesn't necessarily say that aliens don't exist, but they did manufacture alien abductions to convince people of things, to give them that, to mimic that spark within. Right.
Well, it's documented that they would take kids who were orphans and then drug them with hashish and then wake them up, and they would think that they had died and gone to heaven. They'd had all of these beautiful women around them, and
Oh,
you know,
shit.
food and all this stuff. Thomas Gorins talks about the Paranoid American. He came and
Oh, I
talked to us.
love Thomas. I do a
Yeah,
lot of work with him these
he's
days, and
awesome.
maybe
Yeah,
even more.
I need
Stuff
to
coming.
reach back out to him, because he is just an absolute. I mean, he is such a knowledge of this
He's a
stuff.
treasure.
He is a treasure, and a great guy. Like, he's super
Yeah.
funny and great to hang around as well. But he was telling us about that. We were talking about the Illuminati and MK Ultra and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we did like a 3-part series on that, and that was so. If they'll do that, they'll drug somebody with hashish, make them think they're in heaven, and then or lock them in a cage, and then have someone literally save them so that they attached to them basically, and then do whatever that person says. They'll take love away from them. It's maniacal what is documented, and really, really sad, honestly, what people are willing to do. Like, it's like, for your purposes, man, I don't think the end justifies the means on this. But if they're willing to do that,
we don't know it either. We don't know their damn ends,
right?
We only speculate. Who knows? This was awesome.
This was awesome.
Like this.
Yeah, dude. It
Go
was
ahead.
awesome.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I appreciate that I make you feel more optimistic.
Absolutely.
I feel the same way when we talk too, because I feel like we do see things in a similar fashion, and that is refreshing. And I love that we can talk about pretty much whatever. It's all on the table, and
it's all fractal. You can relate one to anything.
Fractal, my man, the fractal. Yeah, and it's so true. And I love what you're doing. I think it's awesome. I'm glad. Thanks for the recommendation as well. I'm going to check this episode actually out.
Please do.
Probably tonight, and just listen to it, because I think that's interesting too. I mean, even if it's unintended, like, that stuff's going to drip down, right? Like, it's just going to become part of that of that collective conscious. And it'll have that momentum. Like, from the transurfing point of view, they calls that pendulums. It's just an energy or an idea that has momentum in society. Like, and then the people that resist it, they're actively involved in it just as much as the people who are for it. So
we make up that balance no matter what. I used to have battles with my buddy about this, who is now like totally super liberal, and he used to just be like this wicked rebel with me about everything until the liberals got into office, and suddenly, we won, man. Like, no. But we used to battle because he'd be bringing up issues, and I feel like this, and we got to stop this, and so I'm like, but we kind of need that for that side of the balance, and he could not accept that. He wouldn't accept the balance thing, and I think that goes back to that whole human versus like that higher state of understanding, where it's like we're having a human experience or whatever that is,
right.
Human is part of consciousness.
It is
senses that we identify as ourselves as humans and individuals at all are, through our senses. That's a part of consciousness. And so, he could never jive with that. And I think that's a gritty divide in a lot of arguments and conversations and ideologies out there. So the more we can have open conversations and put humor to it, like you do, and you inspire, because that's what we did tonight. And that's what we always do. And that's the best way to have these conversations. And that's the best way to break through to people too.
I think so too. Yeah. Just a discourse and not taking ourselves too seriously. It's always good. I'm so glad you're working on some creative things, and the show's going well, and you're doing these other things. I'm going to check into all this stuff. And
sorry, I fucking motor mouth tonight. I'm sorry.
No, dude,
I will say one thing about that possible creative project that we might do is that you will find like all kinds of conspiracy ideas in there. You're not going to see my ideology in there. You're not going to see me super always pushing that this was fake and we're just playing with ideas, so who knows what's coming, but if it does, that will definitely be it. Cause I don't like that either. I wouldn't want to just put out one idea of something. It's gotta be a hypothetical and a fun situation. Does that border on putting out stuff into the community, right?
Oh, so
that's a good full circle here, is that I'm not necessarily everybody's like controlled up on purpose, or what controlled up even really is, or what the ends are to this whole consciousness agenda that's going on.
Right.
So let's be optimistic. And
Yeah, absolutely.
our friend Bootsy here will always help us do that.
Dude,
And so tell
absolutely.
my listeners where they can find you.
For me, you can find me bluecollarmystics.org. I still have my Instagram for now, at least, at Bootsy Greenwood. And then I have a Blue Collar Mystics Instagram as well. That's where I am most active for the most part. But I'm on Facebook too, and we have a Telegram and stuff. But if you go to bluecollarmystics.org, you can find all the links there. Yeah, they're all there. And yeah, do me a favor and let everybody know how best to find you, Andy. I got a couple links in the show notes, but
Sure. Yeah. Apparently not Instagram right now.
definitely not.
I mean, go there, look at my page and see what I yell about. But Twitter, I guess I'm gonna put more focus into what I yell about on Twitter. And I know a lot of people don't like Twitter, and I don't blame them, but it's all controlled. Rumble, like, doesn't matter where you go, you know. But yeah, you could find me on YouTube under the Deep Share Podcast. I'm on Odyssey for those people who love Odyssey. Go to the Deep Share Podcast, and yeah, Twitter at the Deep Share.
Yeah.
And if you want to hit me up, contact@thedeepshare.com.
Awesome.
And before we get out, because I feel like I've been hogging things and a total motor mouth, and I missed you, man, and I like blurting a lot of it out.
No, dude, it makes me feel good that you feel that comfortable. You know?
Okay, good.
I'm not trying to interrupt you either, but it's okay to be excited. You know,
is there anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
Not really. No, I don't think so. I mean, we were getting into a lot, you know, pulling a lot out in this episode. So I really appreciate your insight into it. And
maybe you and I should start doing series together and focus on something, because we always pull little threads and give so many like, hey, check this out. And then we don't really dive deep into anything, but I bet it would be really fun. So we'll have to maybe do that sometime.
Definitely be into that. I'm definitely into collaborating. Let's just stay in touch, and I'm happy to help in any way I can, dude. It's a pleasure to have you as always. And dude, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for reaching out. And here we are. We're doing it live, and then
doing it live. Yeah. Thanks to everybody watching and listening. The Blue Collar Mystic side of things. Appreciate you all.
Thanks to everybody in the chat. Snake Jones. We had, Mr. Star Pilgrim, Facebook user, a very creative name there. Rhea, I can't pronounce your name, Brandy, Pingu, all of y'all, much love, many blessings to everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us live. I'll try to do a better job of letting people know in advance about this stuff. I feel like that's where I sort of dropped the ball. I'm like, okay, well, impromptu live. We're just going to go.
Yeah.
We're just going to go.
I do that all the time on accident. It's never my show. I don't even know how to go live. I don't even bother. But like, I'm on Andreas Exertus' show sometimes, and I should know, and I should be able to like put it out there and advertise. And I always forget to do it,
I do too. It's like up until the last minute. And the joy of doing the podcasting is one thing. It's just
absolutely
the publishing and the posting and the, that kind of stuff. It can get a little bit to where, it's a demotivator sometimes, or it's just something that kind of is not as exciting as the actual making of the show. So really,
I covered that before too. I think we talked about how like even writing a short paragraph is just like, oh my god,
why is this so hard?
Dude, I don't know. For anybody that does watch me on YouTube at all, like I used to like cut out the videos and put 2 tracks in, put each person with my cool background and make it look super official for every episode. And now I just don't. Because it's the information. It really, I mean, you can be snazzy and cool, but I don't have time. I love doing that stuff too. I love video editing and everything, but I just,
the process.
Here you go. Here's the episode.
Yeah. The storage space, all that. That's why I like doing these lives, because, it's already on YouTube. I don't have to download it and then re-upload it or any of that, and I probably, should cut clips, but it's like, dude, I don't want to go through my shit and cut clips out of it. Like nothing sounds more like less fun to me than having to listen to myself talk and be like, "Ooh, that was good."
I
Cut that out.
agree,
You know,
man.
like,
I
God,
don't
no.
listen to any of them. I just
Ugh.
post them.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll re-listen. There was a couple that what the guest had to say was like so good, man, that I just was like, you know what? I want to listen to what they said again, but it's mostly that's usually the only time I'll listen to it, other than to just make sure it doesn't sound bad or something, you know, just be
Right.
like, okay, well it's quality control check, but
Yeah, it works. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's working. But you know, the cool thing about it live too is if it's not working, somebody will say something in the chat like, "We can't hear you," you know.
Yeah, yeah. We tried to do like a game stream a couple years ago. First of all, people were pissed that we were gaming. They're like, "We thought this was going to be about your show." I'm sorry.
That's awesome.
And then they couldn't hear me at all. They're like, "We can't hear you." I'm like, "I'm just going to stop streaming and never look into going live again." Because that's how my ADD will process this.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, dude, thank you
All
so
right,
much
man.
again, and we will be in touch. Thanks everybody
yeah.
out there. Y'all
Thank
are
you.
wonderful. Tune in to next time. It'll be soon enough. I'll make another podcast here soon. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. You guys are lovely, and yeah, hit me up, shoot us a message, hop in the Telegram chat or whatever. You know, we're around, and we'll be doing more things. I'd love to do a deep dive. We'll definitely carve that out. All
Hell
right,
yeah,
everybody.
man. See you later, everybody.